No, is this a divorce? This can't be real!
You thought you could cheat on me and live off my money? Now you get nothing.
Tuesday started like any other, until Evan Lark received a plain, padded envelope with no return address. Inside was an unmarked USB stick. Curious, he turned it over in his hand, unaware it held the key to shattering everything he believed about his life. He plugged it into his laptop and opened the single file. The video began playing immediately. Shaky footage showed a high-end hotel room, crumpled designer sheets, champagne bottles, and Celia, his wife, entangled with a man Evan instantly recognized wasn't him. The timestamp read, Saturday night, just days ago, the same night as Nia Granger's bachelorette party. Evan didn't touch his coffee. He watched Celia laughing, kissing the man's neck, pulling him toward the bed. The scene unfolded in painful clarity. At the bottom of the screen, a message appeared. You deserved to know. His phone buzzed. An unknown number. A voice introduced itself. Theo Marsh, someone Evan vaguely recalled from Jefferson High. Theo had worked security at Saturday's party and remembered Evan standing up for him in school years ago. When Evan asked why he'd sent the footage, Theo simply said, You helped me once, now it's my turn. Then hung up. Evan remained motionless at his cluttered desk, surrounded by insurance files and the buzz of fluorescent lights. The video played again. This time, the man's face was unmistakable. Adrian Kearns, one of Celia's coworkers. Evan closed the laptop slowly. He was 39, and in one morning, the foundation of his life, his relationship, his trust, his plans, had collapsed. But there was no outburst, only a cold, focused quiet. He picked up the phone and called the clinic. Calmly, he asked to book STD tests for himself and his wife. Immediately. Later, seated beside Celia in the doctor's office, he listened as Dr. Martinez reviewed the results with the soft, clinical tone of someone too used to these conversations. Celia sat stiffly, unable to meet his eyes. You've both tested positive for chlamydia, the doctor said gently. It's very treatable. What? Celia cut in, her voice sharp with panic. That's impossible. We've been faithful for 8 years. Evan didn't respond. He simply watched, quietly observing how her hands trembled and her gaze darted away from his. She was convincing. Polished, but not convincing enough. Sometimes these infections remain dormant, Dr. Martinez offered, trying to ease the moment. The important thing is beginning treatment. Yes, of course, Celia agreed quickly. We'll take care of it right away. The car ride home was silent. Evan focused on the road. Celia stared out the window. Their home in Windsor Farms looked like success from the outside, a neighborhood that reflected Celia's ambitions when her HR salary made it affordable. As they pulled into the driveway, Celia finally spoke. About the results. Like the doctor said, Evan murmured, cutting the engine. These things happen. She visibly relaxed. Gripping his hand, she smiled. I love you. I know, he replied. That night, after Celia fell asleep, Evan returned to his home office. He opened their shared bank accounts, credit card logs, and phone records, data he'd ignored for months. Now, every late meeting, every new outfit, every secretive moment made brutal sense. A new message appeared on his phone. No contact listed. Check her work tablet. He moved quietly to the kitchen. Celia's company-issued tablet sat beside the coffee maker, plugged in and locked. He tried their wedding anniversary, denied. Her birthday, wrong. Then he typed Adrian. The device unlocked. The WhatsApp app was open to a group chat named Bad Girls Club. 4 women. Celia, Nia, and 2 others he vaguely knew from social events. He started scrolling. At first, the messages seemed harmless. Then, the tone shifted. Sarcastic, cruel, secretive. One message from Celia jumped out. Evan's working late again. Adrian's right on time. Nia responded fast. Girl, you're playing with fire. What if he finds out? Come on, Celia had written. Evan thinks I'm this sweet book club nerd. He's clueless. Evan's stomach turned. He scrolled on. A few lines down, Nia confessed. Marcus and I hooked up 3 weeks before the wedding. You're awful, Celia had replied. Declan's walking into a trap. He's rich, Nia had said. That's what matters. Once I'm Mrs. Vaughn, I'm in charge. The conversation kept going. Lies, affairs, laughing at their partner's expense. Celia's comments were especially sharp. Told Evan I had a client dinner, she'd typed. Nia responded, Adrian and I are at the Jefferson till midnight. You're gonna end up on a true crime doc, one woman joked. Only if Evan grows a backbone, Celia snapped, which is doubtful. Evan took screenshots of everything. Then came a thread from 3 days ago, the night of the party. One last wild night before Naya becomes Mrs. Boring, Celia had written. Bringing Adrian. This party's going to be insane, Nia replied. What happens in Richmond? Evan read it 3 times. Then carefully put the tablet back. Upstairs, Celia lay fast asleep, arm flung across his side of the bed. The moonlight made her look calm. Lovely. Innocent. He turned and walked back to his office. No words, no anger, just focus. He opened his browser and began researching Adrian Kearns. It didn't take long. LinkedIn listed his position, senior logistics coordinator at Cornerstone Transport, married to a pediatric nurse named Rebecca, 2 kids. Lived in a quiet neighborhood in Mechanicsville, 20 minutes outside Richmond. Perfect life, just like Evan's. Or so it seemed. Evan began connecting the dots between Adrian's online activity and Celia's. On the surface, they seemed cautious. No tagged posts, no comments, no obvious links. But the metadata painted a different picture. Location stamps placed them at the same cafes, boutique hotels, and restaurants on overlapping days over the last half year. Then his phone rang again. Theo. Did you watch the footage? Theo asked. I did. There's more. I caught a hallway recording. Your wife and the bride-to-be, Nia, talking. You'll want to hear it. Send it. Minutes later, an audio file landed in Evan's inbox. He popped in earbuds and hit play. Celia's voice slipped through the cheap hotel walls, casual and cruel. Evan's just predictable, you know? Same dinner, same habits, same everything. Adrian actually reminds me I'm alive. Nia's voice chimed in. At least you know what you're getting. Declan's a sweetheart, but he's like a rich puppy. 0 dominance. That's why we keep our extracurriculars. Celia laughed. Best of both. Security at home, sparks on the side. Exactly, Nia agreed. Once I've got Declan's last name and the keys to the vault, maybe I'll ditch Richmond and find someplace fun to start over. What about Declan? Celia asked. He'll mope for a while, then find someone new to idolize. Guys like that always do. Evan saved the file and leaned back in his chair. The house was silent, save for the faint hum of the AC. Outside, Richmond slept quietly, unaware that everything in Evan's world had shifted. He opened a blank document and began writing, building a plan with the precision of a claims analyst, calm and clinical. By morning, he had an outline, step by step. When Celia strolled into the kitchen in leggings and a tight top, she kissed his cheek as he sipped his coffee and read the Times-Dispatch. Morning, babe, she said cheerfully. We should take a weekend trip soon, maybe hit the beach. It's been forever since we've done something just us. Sounds good, Evan replied, not looking up. Got a weekend in mind? After Nia's wedding. I'll need a break after playing maid of honor. She filled a travel mug with coffee. I've got errands for the party today, last-minute stuff. He nodded. What time will you be back? Late, probably. Wedding chaos, you know how it is. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Drive safe, he said. As soon as she left, Evan made 3 calls. First, Tommy Rodriguez, a seasoned PI he'd used in past fraud investigations. Second, Janet Mills, a cutthroat divorce attorney with a reputation for turning messy into lethal. Third, his personal banker. I need to move funds into a new account, he said calmly. One she can't access. How much are we talking? All of it. By noon, Evan had secured a private investigator, retained legal counsel, and transferred nearly every penny from their shared accounts into one she didn't know existed. He removed himself from joint credit lines and began gathering documentation for every marital asset. At 2 p.m., Tommy called back. Got a visual on your wife. She's at Kearns' place. Been there about an hour. Photos. And video, if you can. Already recording. The guy's not subtle. Parked in plain sight. Evan returned to his office and buried himself in claims. Fire damage with suspicious timing, bogus injuries, fake crashes, same tricks, different names. Deception always left a trail. At 6 p.m., Tommy texted a folder. Photos showed Celia entering Adrian's complex. A few hours later, more shots, her at the window, laughing, then leaving, hair messy, lipstick gone. Evan forwarded the gallery to Janet with the note. First batch of proof. More on the way. Celia came through the door at 8:30, bags in hand from chain stores. Sorry I'm late. Had to grab some decorations. You wouldn't believe the detail Nia wants. Total bridezilla. He looked up from the couch. How'd it go? Draining, but we got it done. She sank into the cushions and kicked off her shoes. How was your day? Uneventful. Just paperwork. She nestled in beside him as they watched Netflix. Evan nodded in all the right places, ran his fingers through her hair, responded to her comments like nothing had changed. Her warmth was familiar. For a moment, he almost let himself forget what was on his phone. Almost. Then Thursday came with an unexpected twist. While reviewing policy files, Evan's desk phone rang. "Mr. Lark? Marcus Chen from Cornerstone Transport. I heard you specialize in insurance investigations." Evan sat up, alert. "I do. How can I help?" "We have a concern about one of our senior analysts. Possible misuse of company assets, potential harassment, or unethical conduct. We need quiet confirmation before proceeding." "What sort of behavior?" "Inappropriate behavior. Possible exchange of favors. We need solid proof before taking action." "Name?" "Adrian Kearns. Do you know him?" "Not personally," Evan said, suppressing a smile, "but I'll look into it." They arranged a meeting for Friday morning. After hanging up, Evan immediately called Tommy. "I need a deeper look into Adrian's work history. HR complaints, office affairs, anything shady. Anything specific I should focus on?" "Everything," Evan said flatly. "We're just getting started. And this guy's about to wish he'd never met my wife." That evening, Celia casually announced over her shoulder that she and Nia had plans for dinner, one final run-through before the wedding. "And don't wait up," she said while perfecting her lipstick in the bedroom mirror. "It's full-on wedding panic mode." "Tell Nia congrats for me," Evan said from the bed. "Will do." Once she was gone, Evan waited half an hour before driving out to the address Tommy had provided, Adrian's apartment building. Celia's Honda sat parked near Building C, just as expected. Evan found a quiet spot across the street and settled in to watch. At 11:47 p.m., his patience paid off. Celia and Adrian strolled out together, laughing, holding hands, and saying a long, slow goodbye that ended with an overly intimate kiss. She lingered against him before finally slipping away to her car. Evan caught every second on camera. By midnight, she walked through their front door to find Evan sitting in bed, flipping through a novel. "How was dinner?" he asked casually. "Draining. Nia's losing her mind over the flower arrangements. We called 3 vendors before she could breathe again. She vanished into the bathroom and came out minutes later in pajamas, face wiped clean. "I'm wiped," she said, sliding beneath the covers. "Sleep well," Evan replied. She pressed into his side with a quiet sigh. "Love you." "Love you too." The next morning, Evan's meeting with Cornerstone Transport exceeded expectations. Marcus Chen, the HR director, looked anxious. "Adrian's been with us about 5 years," he explained. "Solid resume, decent evaluations. But a few weeks ago, a coordinator came forward with a serious complaint. Said he promised her a promotion if she'd sleep with him." "Did she file officially?" She was hesitant, but yesterday, a second woman came forward with something similar. "We're concerned there might be more." Evan took meticulous notes. "I'll need full access to files, internal footage, and private interviews." "You'll have it. When can you start?" "Right now." Evan spent the afternoon inside Cornerstone's offices, poring over Adrian's records and conducting low-key staff interviews. A clearer picture soon emerged. Adrian had become emboldened over the past year, making unwanted advances, leveraging power over subordinates and assuming he was untouchable. One employee, Sarah Kim, was especially honest. "He changed about 6 months ago," she told Evan in a quiet conference room. "More pushy, more smug. He said he was seeing a married woman who treated him like royalty. Thought he was invincible." "Did he ever mention her by name?" "Celia, I think. He showed me a photo once. Pretty blonde. Looked wealthy. He was obsessed." "Thanks, Sarah. That helps a lot." By 5 o'clock, Evan had compiled a detailed report documenting Adrian's behavior. He also planted a discreet voice recorder in Adrian's office. Illegal, yes, but necessary for what came next. Celia was already home by the time he returned. She was in the kitchen, singing softly to herself while breading chicken. "Perfect timing," she smiled, greeting him with a kiss. "I made your favorite, chicken parm and spaghetti." She only made that when guilt was bubbling under the surface. "Smells great. What's the occasion?" "Can't a wife cook just because?" They sat across from each other, sipping wine while the meal steamed between them. "So," she asked sweetly, "anything interesting at work today?" "Same old insurance nonsense. Fraud claims. Pretty dry stuff," she nodded. "You know, I was thinking, maybe we should go on that trip sooner. Things have been nuts lately with the wedding, work, everything. We could use a break." Evan twirled his fork, watching her carefully. "You've seemed stressed. Is something bothering you?" Her hand paused midair. "Just work pressure and the wedding stuff. It's all temporary." "I'm sure it is." Later, they curled up on the couch and put on a movie. Celia drifted off against him, head resting on his shoulder. Her breathing was soft, contented. For a second, she looked like the woman he'd married, serene, unburdened. But that voice from the audio still rang in his head. After she fell asleep, Evan returned to his office and opened his laptop. A message from Tommy was waiting. Jackpot. Attached were images of Adrian leaving work early, 3 p.m., and driving straight to a downtown Richmond hotel. 30 minutes later, Celia's car rolled into the same lot. More shots followed, them entering together, Adrian's hand low on her back by the elevator. Time-stamped, 2 hours inside. Evan archived the files in a secure folder and started outlining the next step in his plan. Saturday morning came hot and sticky, the kind of weather Richmond always saved for late August. Celia spent a full hour getting dressed. "I've got Nia's dress fitting today," she told him, stepping into heels. "Could take all afternoon. You know how fittings go? Hating one dress, trying 10 more. Need anything while you're out? Groceries, if you have time. We're nearly out of everything." She kissed him goodbye and disappeared in a mist of perfume. Once her car was out of sight, Evan picked up the phone. "She just left. Where are you now?" he asked Tommy, already trailing her. "And she's not going anywhere near a bridal shop. Headed straight toward Adrian's neighborhood. Stay with her. I want to know every stop they make." Evan headed to the grocery store as promised, but didn't step inside. Instead, he parked and made calls. First, to Rebecca Kearns, Adrian's wife. "Mrs. Kearns, this is Evan Lark. I'm a private investigator looking into a case involving your husband. I was hoping we could meet briefly. There's something I believe you should see." Rebecca's voice held both suspicion and interest. "What sort of information?" "The kind that explains why he's been working so many late nights lately." They met at a local cafe in Mechanicsville. Rebecca looked tired, early 30s, pulled together but weary, like someone balancing work, motherhood, and a crumbling marriage. As soon as they sat down, she spoke. "He's cheating on me, isn't he? That's why you called." Evan nodded gently. "I'm afraid so." "How long have you known?" "For a while. He's been different, hasn't he? Distant, always glued to his phone, never really present." Evan slid a sealed envelope across the table. "You deserve to know everything, and I'm here to help make sure you do." Rebecca absently stirred her coffee, her gaze distant. "I found hotel receipts stuffed in the glove box last week," she said. "I asked him about it." "What was his excuse?" "Said they were for client meetings. Business stuff." She gave a bitter laugh. "On a Saturday afternoon? I'm tired, not stupid." Evan quietly slid his phone across the table, showing her a photo Tommy had snapped. Celia and Adrian walking into the hotel together just the day before. "Her name's Celia Lark," he said evenly. "She's my wife." Rebecca stared at the screen, her expression hardening. After a long pause, she looked up, eyes glistening. "How long has this been going on?" "Confirmed for 6 months, but I suspect it started earlier." Rebecca covered her face with both hands. "What am I supposed to tell our kids?" "You don't need to rush into anything," Evan said gently. "But I think we can help each other." He leaned forward. "Adrian's about to face serious consequences at work. If you're thinking of leaving, now's the time to secure your financial future." She wiped away her tears and studied him with new attention. "What kind of consequences are we talking?" Evan explained the workplace misconduct complaints and the internal investigation he was conducting. He showed her a few photos, not graphic, but undeniable proof of the affair. "I want copies of every file and image," Rebecca said firmly. "He doesn't get to blow up our family and walk away." "I'll make sure you get everything." They sat together for another hour, sketching out next steps. Evan gave her the name of a skilled divorce attorney and promised to share any new evidence as it came in. As Evan drove home, Tommy called. "Your wife and her boyfriend just checked into the Jefferson's top suite," he reported. "Looks like they're spending the whole day there." "Perfect. Get photos of them arriving and leaving. I want timestamps on every shot." "Already ahead of you," Tommy said. Also, they made a stop before that, downtown jewelry store. Adrian bought something pricey. Evan felt the first real surge of fury since the whole mess began. A jewelry store? The thought of Adrian buying Celia expensive gifts, with money that should have gone to his own children, was too much. "Which place?" "Schwarzschild, near Maine. They were there for about 20 minutes. Evan drove straight there. A bit of name-dropping and a fabricated story about verifying an insurance claim was enough to get what he needed from the sales clerk. Adrian had bought a $3,000 diamond bracelet with a credit card. If Rebecca's suspicions were right, It was likely already maxed out. Evan sat in his car, staring out the windshield, a quiet chill setting into his chest. This wasn't just some reckless affair. It was an investment. Adrian was building a future with Evan's wife, piece by piece. It was time to speed things up. He called Janet Mills, the divorce lawyer. "I want to fast-track everything," he told her. "Papers filed Monday. Serve her at work. Publicly." "You're certain? We talked about waiting to tighten the case. There's more than enough evidence already, and I don't want her moving assets or making plans with him." "Understood. I'll prepare the filing. What about spousal support?" "She's getting nothing, trust me." Sunday passed in eerie normalcy. Celia returned home from what she claimed was a wedding dress fitting, arms full of shopping bags, and wearing the new bracelet. "Nia gave it to me," she said casually. "A thank you for being her maid of honor." Evan examined it. "It's stunning. Looks expensive." "Nia's family is loaded," Celia replied easily. "She got something for all the bridesmaids." "Very thoughtful of her." That night, they sat on the couch, watching Netflix, discussing household stuff. Repairs needed in the guest bath, mortgage refinancing, plans for Thanksgiving with her parents. Just an ordinary couple sharing a quiet evening. Except Evan knew what that bracelet had really cost, and who had paid for it. And he knew, too, that by next week, this house wouldn't belong to them anymore. Monday morning, Celia was in high spirits. "Busy week ahead," she said, applying lipstick in the hallway mirror. "Board presentation Thursday, wedding Saturday. After that, life should slow down." "I hope so," Evan replied. At 10 a.m., a process server arrived at Cornerstone Transport and requested to see Celia Lark. Evan had arranged for Tommy to be present, camera ready. 20 minutes later, the photos arrived. Celia frozen in shock, holding divorce papers, coworkers glancing awkwardly, whispers circling as she turned and walked quickly back to her office. An hour later, Tommy called with an update. She phoned Adrian right away. "They're meeting for lunch to talk about it." "You recording?" "Of course." At noon, Tommy sat at a nearby table in a small Italian restaurant downtown, within earshot. The device he had placed in Adrian's jacket a week prior captured the entire exchange. "This is bad," Celia was saying. "The divorce paperwork spells it out. He knows about us." "How much detail does he actually have?" Adrian asked. "I'm not sure. But the way he's acting, he's too calm. It's not like him." "Maybe he's just in shock," Adrian offered. "Some guys just shut down." "You don't get it," Celia said, leaning in. "Evan doesn't shut down. He plans. If he's filed, then he's already 10 steps ahead." "So what's our move?" "My attorney says I should stall. Try to make things look like we're reconciling. Buy time to figure out what he's got." "Screw that," Adrian said. "Maybe it's good this happened. No more hiding. We can finally be together, out in the open." There was a moment of silence on the recording before Celia's voice returned, softer and more cautious. "Adrian, I need to ask you something. Are you serious about this? About us? About a future together?" "Absolutely," Adrian replied without hesitation. "Why would you even doubt that?" "Because you're still legally married. If we're both going through divorces, we need to be honest. About finances, about debt, about what we're really working with." "Don't worry," Adrian said smoothly. "I've been preparing. Rebecca doesn't even know half of what I've got." Another quiet pause, then Celia asked again, "What kind of accounts are we talking about?" "Offshore investments, crypto wallets, some untraceable cash. She can't touch any of it. I've been setting this up for months. When the dust settles, we'll have options." Evan replayed the audio 3 times, writing down everything. Adrian was hiding financial assets from his wife, questionable at best, criminal at worst. More importantly, he was deceiving Celia, too. According to Rebecca, Adrian was drowning in debt, using their mortgage as a piggy bank to fund the affair. It was time for Phase 3. Evan placed a call to Marcus Chen at Cornerstone Transport. "I've got a preliminary report ready from the investigation into Adrian Kearns. It's urgent. Can we meet today?" "How urgent?" "As in terminate immediately urgent." They met at 3 p.m. Evan arrived with a detailed file, allegations of inappropriate behavior, misuse of company resources for personal gain, and an unprofessional relationship with an HR executive from another firm, specifically Evan's wife. Marcus skimmed through the file, shaking his head as he landed on the photos. "She's in HR? Director level at Morrison Logistics?" He rubbed his temples. "If it gets out that one of our senior analysts was mistreating employees and sleeping with an HR exec from another company, we're exposed. Badly. I recommend immediate dismissal and a full audit of his access, Evan said. I'll handle it. Can you prep everything for our legal department? Already done. Evan handed over a thick binder. This should protect the company from any wrongful termination lawsuit. By 4:30, Adrian had been terminated. Security escorted him out of the building, taking his phone, laptop, and badge. Tommy, stationed nearby at Evan's request, captured it all. Adrian exiting the building with a cardboard box in hand, face flushed with anger and disbelief. At 5:15, Celia called. Evan, I need to tell you something, she said nervously. Adrian got fired today. That's awful. What happened? I'm not totally sure. HR stuff. Apparently, there were some complaints from women at the office. That's serious. It is, and with everything happening between us, she paused. Can we talk tonight? Really talk. I think we need to have a conversation about our marriage. Of course. I'll bring home dinner. Thanks. I love you. Love you too. Evan hung up, smiling faintly. She was ready to confess. Unfortunately for her, honesty was no longer enough. That night, Celia paced nervously across the living room while Evan calmly sat at the kitchen table eating takeout. She changed into an old sweater and jeans, twisting her hair in anxious circles. I need to talk to you, she repeated for the third time in 10 minutes. Evan didn't look up. I'm listening. It's about Adrian and me. She finally stopped pacing and looked directly at him. We've been seeing each other. I've made a huge mistake. I'm sorry, Evan. I really am. He placed his chopsticks on the edge of the carton and gave her his full attention. How long has it been going on? 6 months. Maybe a little more, she said, wiping tears from her cheeks. It started as work and then it just happened. He made me feel alive again. I see, Evan said quietly. Celia stared at him, stunned by his calm. That's it? That's all you're going to say? Evan stood up and walked into the living room. She followed, arms wrapped tightly around her body. What do you want me to say? He asked without turning. I don't know. Yell. Throw something. Act like you care. She sank onto the couch, tears running down her face. You're just so calm. He finally looked at her. Would shouting fix any of this? No, she admitted, her voice cracking. After a pause, she added, I want to fix this. Adrian's out of the picture now. His world's crashing down, and I don't want to lose mine, too. Maybe we could try therapy, or at least talk things through. Evan sat in his usual chair across from her, his face unreadable. So, the affair is definitely over? Yes, she said quickly. It's done. When did you last see him? Celia hesitated. Last week, she said eventually. We ended things. Which day last week? He asked, voice still calm. She fidgeted. Why does that matter? Because I want to understand the timeline. When did you decide it was over? She looked down before replying. When I realized how much damage it was doing, when I saw what I was risking. Evan gave a slow nod. That's interesting, he said. Because according to my investigator, you were with Adrian yesterday at the Jefferson Hotel, Presidential Suite. You also met him for lunch this afternoon to discuss how to handle the divorce. Celia's face went pale. You've been spying on me? I've been gathering evidence, Celia. For the divorce proceedings, yes. Celia made an attempt to rise, then hesitated and sat back down. How much do you actually know? Everything, Evan replied, voice calm but unflinching. The video from the hotel during the bachelorette weekend, the infection you passed to me, the WhatsApp group where you and Nia laughed at your husbands, your affair with a colleague, the expensive bracelet Adrian bought you with money stolen from his own family. Want me to keep going? Celia's face went pale. What video? Evan opened his laptop and played the clip. The screen showed her with Adrian, laughing, kissing, tumbling onto the hotel bed. When it ended, she looked like she'd been punched. Who filmed that? Someone who thought I deserved the truth. Evan, please let me explain. There's nothing left to explain, he said. You made your decisions. Now you deal with the fallout. Tears streamed down her cheeks. What kind of fallout? What are you planning to do? I'm not doing anything to you, he said evenly. You're doing it to yourself. I'm just handing you the rope. She looked confused and terrified. What does that mean? Closing the laptop, Evan gave her a glance that was almost sympathetic. It means Adrian lied to you. He doesn't have hidden wealth. He's drowning in debt. Nearly $200K between credit cards, personal loans, and a second mortgage he took out behind Rebecca's back. You were an expensive indulgence. Her sobs slowed, but her body still shook. No. He told me he had money in crypto and offshore accounts. Evan didn't blink. He told you what you wanted to hear, but the reality is, he's broke. And now he's jobless, facing lawsuits, and about to go through a divorce with a woman who just found out he buried them in debt. Celia's head jerked up. How do you know all this? I've been speaking to Rebecca, he said. She's filing tomorrow. And she's taking his financial deception to the authorities. Celia stared, stunned. You're talking to his wife. We've gotten to know each other pretty well, Evan said. Turns out betrayed spouses tend to bond. Celia's expression hardened into rage. This is vindictive. You can't go around ruining lives just because you're hurt. I'm not ruining anything, Evan said as he stood. You and Adrian did that on your own. I'm just making sure no one's left in the dark. A silence filled the room. Then, with pleading eyes, she asked softly, What about us? Our marriage? That ended the moment you slept with Adrian, he said without emotion. Everything after that was just logistics. She sank into the couch, her voice small and unsteady. Tell me what I can do. There has to be something. There's not, he said, reaching for his coat. This is done. There has to be, she insisted. I'll give you everything in the divorce. The house, my retirement account, whatever you want. Evan paused, looked at her and said, I already transferred everything. Into accounts you can't touch. Her face froze in panic. You can't do that. That's illegal. Actually, he replied coolly, it's legal asset protection, all above board. But the house, she began, is solely in my name, Evan interrupted. You signed a quit-claim deed when we refinanced. You said it was simpler for taxes, remember? Celia went pale. You planned this? No, Evan said, picking up his car keys. I prepared for this. There's a difference. He headed for the door without looking back. I'm staying at a hotel tonight. You can remain here until the divorce is final. After that, you'll need to leave. Her voice cracked as she asked, Where am I supposed to go? That's not my responsibility anymore. He reached for the door, then stopped and turned. Oh, and Celia, you should get tested again. Adrian's been with other women, too. Rebecca found proof of at least 3 more affairs. Evan left her weeping on the couch and drove to a Hampton Inn near the airport. The room wasn't fancy, just a small, standard suite, but for the first time in months, he slept soundly. Tuesday arrived with an unexpected twist. Evan was halfway through breakfast in the hotel dining area when his phone buzzed. The message came from an unfamiliar number. This is Nia Granger. We need to talk. It's about the wedding. He stared at the screen, then replied, I don't think we have anything to discuss. Her reply was fast. I know you have something on me from the bachelorette party. I'll pay you to keep quiet. Evan raised an eyebrow. She was panicking. Interesting. Meet me at Pearlie's Deli on Boulevard, noon. He spent the morning catching up on work at the office. Around 11, Tommy called with news. Adrian's having a rough one, the PI said. Rebecca changed the locks. His credit cards are frozen. And people are starting to whisper about why he got fired. Do we know where he's staying? Evan asked. Some rundown motel on Broad? Weekly rentals? Oh, and his car got repoed this morning. Evan allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. Keep tabs on him. Let me know if he reaches out to Celia. You got it, Tommy said before hanging up. At noon, Evan arrived at Pearlie's. Nia was already there, nervously scanning the room, her manicured fingers fluttering over her phone. Thanks for coming, she said, attempting to sound composed as he slid into the booth. Evan rested his hands on the table. What do you need, Nia? She leaned in, lowering her voice. I know you have video from the bachelorette weekend. I know it shows me with Marcus. I'll pay 10 grand if you delete it. Evan lifted an eyebrow. Why would I want to do that? Because your fight is with Celia, not me. You don't need to blow up my life too. She looked polished and expensive. Designer clothes, flawless makeup, jewelry that cost more than Evan's car. The kind of person used to getting what she wanted. When's the big day? He asked. This Saturday, she said. Declan's family is flying in. 200 guests. Just the venue cost $40,000. That's a lot to lose. Exactly. And if that footage gets out, she didn't finish. Evan tilted his head slightly. What did you do that's so incriminating? She squirmed in her seat. I made some stupid choices. Things that don't reflect who I am. What kind of choices? He asked, unblinking. She hesitated, then admitted. I slept with Marcus, my ex, at the hotel. It was a mistake. Just nerves? Cold feet. I was scared, drunk. I wasn't thinking clearly. Evan nodded slowly. And now you're afraid Declan finds out. Tears welled in Nia's eyes. He'd be crushed, she whispered. Declan's never even been with anyone else. He thinks I'm flawless, like I've never done anything wrong. She dabbed at her cheeks with a napkin, trying to stay composed. He's kind. He doesn't deserve this. You're right, Evan said evenly. He doesn't. Her tone softened with hope. So, will you erase the video? I'll consider it, Evan replied, his voice calm. Her expression shifted instantly. What's that supposed to mean? Rather than explain, Evan reached into his coat pocket, pulled out his phone, and opened a photo. One not from the party, but taken during surveillance last week. This one's from 5 days ago, he said. You and Marcus at the Omni, 3 hours together? Nia froze. Her mouth parted slightly as her gaze fixed on the image. How did you get this? Why were you following me? I wasn't tailing you, Evan said coolly. I was tracing the network of affairs that spun out from my wife. You're part of that mess. This is insane, she muttered. You can't just stalk people. I was investigating insurance fraud. That led to inappropriate workplace behavior, then to infidelity, all within legal bounds. She dropped her eyes to the table, defeated. After a long pause, her voice emerged, quiet, dull. What do you want from me? Evan didn't hesitate. I want the truth. How long have you been cheating on Declan? Since the engagement. 8 months. She covered her face. Marcus and I were together for 2 years before Declan. I thought I was over him. But when I got engaged, he came back into the picture. I couldn't resist. Then why are you marrying Declan if you're still in love with your ex? Because Marcus is broke, she said, voice rising loud enough to draw a glance from the next table. She quickly lowered her tone. He tends bar, lives in a 1-bedroom apartment, drives a junker. Declan's family owns half the real estate in the county. So it's about money. It's about stability, she snapped, about building a life I actually want. She met his eyes with a defensive glare. Does that make me awful? It makes you honest, finally. Then, will you delete the footage? Evan paused. Nia wasn't his target, not directly, but she had helped Celia deceive him, and now she was about to trap a decent man in a lie for the sake of a lifestyle. No, he said at last, but I'll offer you an alternative. What kind of alternative? Cancel the wedding, tell Declan everything, come clean before Saturday. If you do that, I'll keep the video private. You're out of your mind, she hissed. I can't do that. Then I will, Evan said. 1 hour before the ceremony, I'll hand Declan a USB drive with every photo, every timestamp, every clip. He can decide whether to say, I do. Her jaw dropped. You'd really ruin a wedding in front of 200 people. I'd be rescuing someone from marrying a woman who doesn't love him. Sounds noble to me. That's blackmail. No, it's a decision. Be honest in private or get exposed in public. Mascara streaked her cheeks as she cried openly. He'll never forgive me. Maybe not, Evan said, but at least he'll be making a choice with the truth. And if I don't, then Saturday will be unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. Evan stood and walked out, leaving her sobbing in the booth. He had things to do, plans to finish. The wedding was 4 days away, and he intended to be prepared, no matter how it ended. By Wednesday morning, updates were pouring in. The first came early. Rebecca Kearns called with no greeting. Adrian showed up at my office yesterday. Security had to remove him. He was screaming that you'd ruined his life. Evan's voice sharpened. Are you okay? I think so. He's not violent, just unhinged. I wanted to give you a heads up. He's unraveling. I'll have someone shadow him, Evan assured. Any movement on the divorce? My attorney filed everything yesterday, Rebecca replied. Adrian has no clue how much debt he's actually carrying. Turns out he's been hiding credit cards from me for years. How much? Just shy of $300,000, she said, bitter. Plus the second mortgage he used to finance your wife's lifestyle. Every hotel, meal, gift, I paid for it. Evan felt an icy sense of justice settle in. He's going to be wrecked financially. Completely, she said. And with the workplace harassment suits, his lawyer's bracing for a disaster. He may have to file for bankruptcy. Perfect, Evan said simply. The next call came an hour later. Janet Mills, his attorney. Celia's lawyer reached out. They're offering an even asset split if you agree to a no-fault divorce. Evan raised an eyebrow. Why the sudden generosity? Because they've got nothing to work with. Janet said. This is a last-ditch offer. Decline it. I want a fault-based divorce. Every detail on the record. Janet sighed. That'll be messy and public. I'm counting on it. By midday, Tommy checked in. He's been all over your wife today. Calls, texts, even showed up at her office. She's ignoring him. Maybe Celia's finally catching on, Evan said. Or maybe she's scared, Tommy replied. People are saying Adrian's spiraling, drinking, ranting, threatening revenge. Stay on him, Evan said. If he crosses a line, call the police. Got it. Oh, and by the way, rumors are swirling. Nia Granger's wedding might be in trouble. Word is the groom's starting to waver. Evan allowed himself a half smile. Is that so? At 3 p.m., a text lit up his phone. I told Declan about Marcus. Everything. The wedding is off. Are you satisfied? Nia. He typed back, I'm proud of you for being honest. The reply came within seconds. Declan won't look at me. His family's livid. We lost every deposit. I've got nothing left. Evan's response was blunt. You lost money and pretense, but you got your integrity back. Nia's final message was venomous. Screw your integrity. I hope you and Celia go down together. Evan didn't reply. He placed the phone down, quietly pleased. Declan Vaughn wouldn't be marrying someone who saw him as a paycheck, and for Evan, that counted as a win. Thursday morning blindsided Evan with news he hadn't expected. He was checking out of the hotel, finally ready to look for a more stable place to live, when his phone buzzed. Celia's name flashed on the screen. He answered without hesitation. Evan, it's me, she said, her voice shaky, like she was holding back tears. Something awful happened. His pulse quickened. What is it? Adrian came to my office last night. He attacked me. Evan stopped in his tracks. His grip on the phone tightened. Are you okay? I've got some bruises, she said, her voice cracking. I'm scared. He was drunk and furious, ranting about how he'd lost everything. His job, his wife, his life. He blamed me. Where are you now? I'm at the police station. I filed a report. They're trying to locate him. I'm on my way, Evan said immediately. When he arrived at the Richmond PD downtown, he spotted Celia in the lobby, seated by herself. She looked awful, drained, pale, with a deep purple bruise on her cheek. Despite everything between them, the sight triggered a flicker of something in him. Not love, maybe, but something that hadn't completely died. He walked over and sat beside her, his tone steady. Tell me what happened. Celia stared at her hands as she spoke. I stayed late last night, finishing up some reports for the divorce. He showed up out of nowhere, reeking of alcohol. He was unhinged, Evan. Kept yelling about how I'd ruined his life. Did he threaten you? Evan asked quietly. He grabbed me, she said, eyes meeting his. Shook me and said if he was going down, he'd make sure I went with him. She touched the bruise on her cheek. I tried to run, and that's when he hit me. Evan clenched his fists, jaw tightening. Jesus, Celia. She glanced around nervously, her voice dropping to a whisper. Security intervened before it got worse. But Evan, he's unhinged. He mentioned coming after all of us. You, me, Rebecca, even Nia. He's unraveling. Before Evan could respond, a female officer stepped into the lobby. Mrs. Lark, we'd like to revisit your statement. Celia nodded and stood. Of course. As Evan started to rise too, she reached out and clutched his hand tightly. Please, stay. I know we're not in a good place, but I'm scared, and right now, you're the only one I trust. He looked down at her trembling hand, then at her bruised face. All right, he said softly. I'm not going anywhere. Detective Maria Santos handled the interview. She was firm, but kind. When did the relationship begin? Has Adrian ever shown violent tendencies before? Do you have a safe place to stay? Celia answered everything, quietly, honestly. I've been at the house, but now that he knows where I live, we'll have patrols swing by frequently, Santos said. Still, it might be wise to find a temporary location. Later, Evan and Celia sat in his car parked outside the precinct. The silence between them was heavy until Celia finally spoke. Thank you for staying. Evan stared ahead, hands on the wheel. You don't have to thank me. I do, she whispered. After all the damage I caused, she turned her face toward the window, her voice thin. I've been such a fool about Adrian, about our marriage, about everything. Evan opened his mouth, but she raised a hand. Please, just let me say this. She paused, wiping tears with her sleeve. I thought danger meant passion, but all I found was danger. She gave a humorless laugh. You want to know the truth? Evan glanced at her. Only if you want to tell me. I was bored, she admitted. Bored with my life, with being responsible, with being the dependable wife. Adrian made everything feel electric and reckless. A pause. But reckless is just a polite word for selfish and stupid. Evan didn't reply. What was there to say? I know there's no fixing this. I know I've destroyed your trust, but I do see it now. What I gave up. You're a good man, Evan. Better than I ever deserved. He looked at her, expression unreadable. Where are you staying tonight? I don't know, she admitted. I'll probably check into a hotel. My parents live hours away. Evan weighed his options. Walking away would be logical. She wasn't his responsibility. Not anymore. But with Adrian loose and unpredictable, it didn't feel right to abandon her. You can stay at my hotel tonight, he said finally. I'll take the couch. Tomorrow we'll figure something else out. You don't have to do that. I know, but I will. Back at the Hampton Inn, they said little. Celia called in sick. Evan notified Tommy and Detective Santos. Adrian hadn't been found yet, though his car had been spotted near the downtown area. He's volatile, Evan said during the call. I don't want anyone else getting hurt. Tommy's voice came through rough but certain. Cops are searching, but this guy has nothing left. That's when they're most dangerous. That night, Evan and Celia ordered dinner to the room and sat side by side on the edge of the bed watching the news. It was strange. Two people who once shared everything, now barely speaking, yet somehow finding comfort in silence. As the news anchor's voice faded into commercials, Celia broke the silence between them. Can I ask you something? Evan grabbed the remote and hit mute. Go ahead. She didn't meet his eyes. When did you first find out about Adrian? Leaning against the headboard, Evan exhaled. The day we went in for the STD tests. You were convincing, but not quite convincing enough. Her mouth parted slightly. You knew back then, and didn't say a word? I needed proof. I was preparing for what came next. Planning how to ruin me, she said sharply. He looked over, unfazed. Planning how to protect myself. Everything else was fallout. Fair, she whispered, her gaze falling to her lap. The silence thickened again, filled with everything they hadn't said. Finally, she asked, So, what now? Between us. Evan kept his eyes forward. We move forward. You go your way, I go mine. The divorce finalizes and we start new lives. Her voice trembled slightly. And Adrian? He faces the consequences, just like everyone else. By Friday morning, they had their answer. Evan's phone rang at 7 a.m. It was Detective Santos. We've located Adrian Kearns. He's in custody. Because of what happened? Evan asked, already sitting upright. That and more. He broke into his ex-wife's house last night, took electronics, jewelry, tried to use your wife's credit card at several stores, and left threatening voicemails for his old boss. Evan exhaled slowly. So, jail? Oh, without a doubt, Santos confirmed. Felony charges across the board. He'll be off the radar for quite some time. After hanging up, Evan turned toward Celia, who was seated by the window with a coffee mug clenched in her hands. They arrested him. She looked up, eyes wide with relief. Seriously? Burglary, theft, identity fraud, threats. The works. The credit card charges make it federal. He'll be locked up for years. Her voice was barely above a whisper. So it's really over? The legal stuff, yes, Evan said. Our divorce? Still pending. Right. She looked at him carefully. I know this sounds ridiculous, but a part of me wishes we could rewind. Go back before any of this happened. We can't, Evan said gently. I know. Her eyes filled again. But if we could... Would you? Evan studied her, the face that once made him laugh. The woman who had become a stranger. Still beautiful, still intelligent, but also someone who had torn their life apart for 6 reckless months. And laughed while doing it. No, he answered honestly. I wouldn't. Because you hate me? No, he said. Because I don't trust you. And without that, there's no reason to rebuild anything. She nodded, wiping away tears. I get it. I hope so, Evan said. And I hope you've learned something from all this. She gave a dry, bitter laugh. That cheating ruins everything. I knew that going in. No, Evan said, zipping his duffel. That your actions impact more than just you. That people around you aren't extras in your little drama. And when you hurt them, she said softly, they might hurt you back. She looked up at him. Was that what this was? Revenge? He met her eyes, steady. No, it was refusing to be the victim. There's a difference. 6 months later, Evans stood outside Richmond International Airport, watching planes lift off in the distance. He was saying goodbye, not just to the city, but to a life he once cherished and could no longer stay in. The divorce had been finalized 3 months earlier. Celia's lawyer, known for handling messy separations, couldn't do much. The evidence had been damning. With Virginia's infidelity laws stacked against her, she walked away with barely anything, just her car, her clothes, and enough savings to relocate. Adrian had been sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. Rebecca sold their house to erase his debt and moved to North Carolina with their kids. She'd sent Evan a handwritten Christmas card, thanking him for helping her escape what she now recognized as an emotionally abusive relationship. Nia had vanished from Richmond not long after the wedding scandal. Rumor had it she was selling homes in Charlotte, dating a new guy who had no idea about her past with Marcus. Some people never changed. Declan Vaughn had sent Evan a bottle of single malt and a note. "You saved my life. If you ever need anything, call me." Last Evan heard, Declan was dating a nurse from VCU, someone who actually enjoyed hiking and volunteering rather than pretending to. Flight 447 to Denver, now boarding all rows. Evan picked up his carry-on. His new job with a Denver-based insurance firm awaited. Better pay, bigger cases, a fresh beginning in a city where no one knew his history. Just before boarding, his phone buzzed. A text from an unlisted number, one he still recognized instantly. "I heard you're leaving. Good for you. I hope you find peace. I'm sorry. C." He stared at the message for a moment, then deleted it without replying. Some stories didn't deserve sequels. As the plane ascended over Richmond, Evan looked down at the city that had been his home for 15 years. From this high up, it looked neat and quiet, like nothing bad had ever happened there. But Evan knew better now. Darkness didn't belong to a place. It lived in people. And when that darkness found you, what you did next defined who you were. Some people fell apart. Some turned cruel. And some, those who waited, planned, and moved with clarity instead of emotion, survived. The aircraft veered west toward the Rockies' snow and a new chapter that belonged entirely to Evan. For the first time in what felt like forever, he smiled. 3 hours into the flight, a notification buzzed. His investment portfolio had crossed a major milestone, more than enough to buy a house with mountain views, and a yard big enough for the dog he'd always wanted, but Celia never allowed. That money had once been theirs, but through her betrayal, she'd forfeited all rights to it. As the flight attendant offered drinks, Evan opened his laptop and began searching dog breeds best suited to alpine climates. German Shepherds stood out, loyal, smart, protective. Everything his ex-wife hadn't been. The clouds thinned as the plane sailed into sunset. Evan looked ahead, into a life where trust wouldn't be misplaced and lies wouldn't be ignored. Some might say what he did to Celia and Adrian was harsh, even vengeful. Evan saw it differently. He'd taught them something, that betrayal carried a cost, that some men, when wounded, didn't break. They calculated, then they hit back. Below him, the state of Virginia faded into the shadows of evening. And ahead, Colorado waited, with its sharp air, clean slate, and the kind of peace that only comes when you've lost everything and chosen to rebuild anyway, on your own terms.